Love music, live sport. Pole Position with Andy Alston and Adam Todd on Rock Sport Radio.
Hello and welcome to Pole Position, the motorsport show here on Rock Sport Radio. It's Andy Alston with you alongside Adam Todd, broadcasting live on DAB digital radio across central Scotland, online and on TuneIn. And on the show this week, Mercedes' strategy call increases Hamilton's points haul, Turkington wins BTCC title number 3, Rossi takes a stand in Thailand, and R4 to blame as Ogier takes aim. All this and more on Pole Position. Now, Lewis Hamilton extended his championship lead over Sebastian Vettel to 50 points after he won the Russian Grand Prix last weekend. But it was a controversial victory for Hamilton as his Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas was told to let Hamilton through. And Adam, what was your take on this whole situation?
Well, it's never nice to see in Formula One when a driver who deserves to win doesn't get the victory, but personally, I think Mercedes made the right call because at the end of the day, they've got to think what is the best chance that as a brand for Mercedes, we can guarantee ourselves that we win 2 World Championships, the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship. In terms of the Constructors' Championship, they were always going to get 1-2. In the Drivers', you know, it was going to be a 43-point advantage for Lewis Hamilton had he finished second and Vettel had finished third and Bottas went on to win. But in motorsport, 43 points, it seems a lot, but all of a sudden that can evaporate so quickly, especially if Hamilton was to have one retirement. And that's all it takes, and all of a sudden Vettel's in the mix with a few races to go. So Mercedes want to maximise the opportunity they give to Lewis Hamilton to win the World Championship, and they did that. It was a harsh call, but, you know, at the end of the day, you could argue if Valtteri Bottas had did better earlier on in the season, if he hadn't had so much bad luck as well, because he was performing well at the start of the season, then he wouldn't have been in that situation. But for me, the team did make the right call.
But Adam, Hamilton's championship lead was going to increase anyway, so why did Mercedes feel they need to do this? You're talking about 7 points there ultimately. You know, I mean, their car's strong. Hamilton's in great form at the moment. Was this not just totally unnecessary?
Well, a lot of people are taking that viewpoint that Hamilton does have such a big lead and that Ferrari's challenge is kind of evaporated so quickly all of a sudden that it looks as if Lewis Hamilton is just going to ease to a 5th World Championship this season after so much promise from Ferrari. But for me, I stand by it. I think Toto Wolff, the Mercedes, the strategy that called this in the pit wall, I think it was the right decision overall. From a PR perspective, it's obviously not great at all. But at the end of the year, Toto Wolff's got to guarantee Mercedes win both World Championships. And, you know, who's to say Vettel doesn't win the championship by 4 points and then Mercedes could come back and say, well, why didn't you let Lewis Hamilton win in Russia and engineer that? So, you know, everybody's going to have their own opinion. It's a big talking point in Formula One. But yeah, it was very difficult to see those pictures of Valtteri Bottas on the podium as well, and he just looked so dejected because he'd done a great job all weekend, and it's a track he goes well at. Russia, quite ironic actually, last year in Russia when he won, he gave his teammate a big helping hand because he kept Sebastian Vettel behind him. But
Adam, do you think there should be clear guidelines into team orders here? Because, you know, we can say that, you know, it's absolutely legal, you're allowed to do it and what have you, but, you know, for me, Adam, there's a bit of a it's not nice to see, you know. But ultimately we are being robbed of racing, you know. Yes, they're both under the Mercedes banner and everything else, but ultimately when it's all said and done, we want every single driver on the track racing for the full duration. We don't want these sort of situations being engineered.
Yeah, I agree with you, but it's a balancing act that Formula One needs to strike, because at the end of the day, it is a team sport in Formula One, and Lewis Hamilton, he's the one that is leading Mercedes' charge for the Drivers' Championship. Okay. Hamilton and Bottas, right, they're not there.
Stop you right there. If that was Sebastian Vettel on Sunday, and it was Kimi Räikkönen that was moved out of the way, what would the situation be like? It would be a very, very different conversation we would be having, because everyone would be saying, it's Ferrari, that's them, up to the old tricks again, it's always Ferrari, they've always had their team orders. Now that it's Mercedes, it's Lewis Hamilton that's winning, I don't see the same sort of level of debate.
Well, I think Mercedes, I mean, Ferrari, as you mentioned, alluded to, you know, they've done it before. Schumacher, Barrichello, they've been known to do it in the past. And, you know Sebastian Vettel's the number one driver at Ferrari. And I think either or, at the end of the day, Mercedes have did what they think's best. And I think come the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi, regardless of how many points Hamilton wins the championship, if he wins it at all, but he's certainly looking very good for it, then they've made the right decision. Mercedes have to guarantee that they can win 2 world championships. If Lewis Hamilton is going to have a 43-point lead over 50-point or a 50-point lead, if you're Toto Wolff, what would you prefer?
Well, yeah,
exactly. You'd prefer the 50, end of the conversation.
No, but hold on, right. The conversation and the argument I'm putting to you here is this, right? Because it's Mercedes, people are saying, right, well, he's got to do that. Hamilton's in the lead of the championship. I can understand why he's doing it, blah, 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 right? If that were Ferrari, I guarantee you the conversation would be very, very different. People would be saying it's Maranello, that's the way they've always done it. And, it just strikes me as a little bit of double standards, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point, but for Mercedes, as I alluded to, they've made that decision, and it's just in the best interest of the team. It's in the best interest for the team. Lewis Hamilton's fighting for the World Championship. He's the number one driver. If you have an opportunity to switch them around, then you might as well do it and guarantee that. And, Ferrari, they have been known to do it in the past, and I don't necessarily take the idea that, if it had been Ferrari, it would have been treated differently. It's part of Formula One. It always has been team orders, and it will continue to be for as long as it's a team sport.
So how do you think Valtteri Bottas feels about all this then, Adam?
Well, it must be so infuriating, really, for Valtteri Bottas at the moment. As I mentioned earlier on in the show, he had a great start to the season, and many people actually forget that. Australia was a bit of a nightmare, but then he went on a good run, but he was unlucky. Azerbaijan, that should have been 25 points in the bag, but then he got that puncture, and that was coming off 2 second places in Bahrain and China. And then after Azerbaijan, he was second in Spain to his teammate Lewis Hamilton, so he had a really good run at the start of the year, a bit unlucky. And, Russia was probably the first race where he has completely dominated. He's not just been in front of his teammate, he's actually been in front of the Ferraris as well. And he was controlling that race, doing everything he had to do. But, at the end of the day, the team have made a very difficult decision, but it's in the best interest of the team. All
right, let's speak to our first guest on pole position this week. I'm delighted to welcome back Scott Douglas from the Checkered Flag. Scott, what's your stance in this whole team order situation we had with Mercedes last weekend?
I do agree. It is. There's a certain case of double standards here. The F1 world does seem to be incensed by this. Had it been another team, would there have been as much surprise? I don't know. For me, I think it was always inevitable it was going to happen. I think what the result of this is, though, was that it wasn't the most exciting race. Championship-wise, it looks like Hamilton's going to take it, so they needed to find their excitement and gossip somewhere, so everyone decided to jump on the back of this. But it's, as you say, team orders are as old as F1. They've been here for a while, and they're going to be here for a while since.
And Scott, surely when Valtteri Bottas joined Mercedes, he must have known deep down that he was going to play a sort of support role to Hamilton. Yes, it might not have been there on paper in the contract, but he must have known that he's not there to win championships ultimately for Mercedes.
Well, I actually genuinely think that with Mercedes, as we've seen with Rosberg, that if you can show yourself to be, good enough to challenge for the title, good enough to take Lewis Hamilton on every single weekend, then they'll give you a fair crack of the whip. The problem with Bottas is, although as you guys were talking about, he has had bad luck this season, especially at Azerbaijan, he's not been good enough. He hasn't been up to Hamilton's standards. He's made mistakes. There's been race weekends where he's been nowhere near his pace. And as a result, when you get to the sharp end of the season, you're not in the title hunt anymore. So yeah, from that perspective, he really should have known by now that, if he's not in the title hunt, and it looks like Ferrari, might be, it's a long shot, but they still are, then yeah, he should have really been able to see the fact that this was going to come. I don't think it would have come as too much of a shock to him.
So do you think this maybe gives Bottas some extra motivation for next season, Scott?
Yes, certainly. I think he's probably got quite a lot of motivation anyway. It looks like Esteban Ocon is going to be out of a drive next season, so he's going to be hanging around the Mercedes pit garage with his eyes feasting upon Bottas's car. So I think he's going to have enough motivation anyway, but he'll be hoping for a better start than he had this season. As you mentioned, Australia was bad for him. Some bad luck despite some good drives. Had it gone his way, he might have been, in the title discussion. I still don't think he'd be ahead of Hamilton, but he would have been in there and thereabouts. The fact that he hasn't this season means that he's having to take these team orders, and it's a bitter pill to swallow, but the only way to avoid it is by next season coming back stronger and making sure you are in the title fight.
So with Hamilton now got a 50-point advantage here, can you see any way back for Ferrari and Sebastian Vettel?
It's going to take something cataclysmic from the Mercedes team. 50 points and 2 race wins, that's 2 DNFs. And then you still need to outscore a Mercedes car that has, for the last couple of races, looked far superior to the Ferrari. I really don't know. Not only would Ferrari have to have a turnaround in luck, they'd have to have a severe turnaround in pace, and I just don't see it coming from anywhere at the moment. It looks like whatever trick of the engine they were using to get us an advantage over Mercedes over the last few races has ebbed away, or the FIA have cottoned on to it. And it's going to be a huge task. But it's Formula One, and in the words of a great commentator, anything can happen, and it usually does. So don't count it out.
Hi Scott, Adam here. Ferrari's strategy calls have came under fire this year, but in Sochi they managed to undercut Hamilton, but Vettel could only keep him behind for a couple of laps. So why do you think Mercedes seem to have had a pace advantage over Ferrari in recent races?
Does generally seem that to be the case that the Ferrari engine isn't packing as much punch. Ever since the new engine formula came in, it seems it's been an engine series, so whoever has the most powerful engine has tended to be at the front of the grid. But that seems to have ebbed away from Ferrari. But it genuinely just seemed like the Mercedes had the better grip, the better aerodynamic grip over the course of Sochi especially. The move that Hamilton ended up pulling on Vettel was through turn 3 at Sochi, which is, a very long left-hander. It required a lot of aerodynamic grip, a lot of mechanical grip, and he cruised by Vettel as if he wasn't there. And that shows you just how strong that Mercedes car is. In turbulent air, through a fast corner, it was just utterly superior to the Ferrari. I think that's why, unfortunately for Ferrari, it doesn't bode well for Suzuka this weekend. That's going to be another track full of fast corners. It just looks like that Mercedes really is dialed in at the moment, and that's why Ferrari's big problem is at the moment. It's just they can't live with that Mercedes car.
And you mentioned that overtake the Hamilton pulled over on Vettel. Before that, there was a bit of controversy. Lewis Hamilton coming on the team radio and the stewards investigating that potentially Sebastian Vettel moved twice on the straight. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a classic title gamesmanship there. I think if Lewis had pulled off the same move, he would have been incredulous that anyone could question there was anything wrong with it. It was hard. It was. I see what he meant by the 2 moves from Vettel, as opposed to moves in different direction, which is what the rule actually applies to. Vettel moved right, and when he saw that Hamilton was still going to try and go down the inside, he moved right again. However, it's in the same direction. It didn't cause an accident. Hamilton was able to back off and move the other way. So I think it was a tough move. It was an aggressive move, but it was absolutely fine. It was good that marshals, the I didn't find anything wrong with it, because that's the type of racing we need to see in Formula One. We need to see excitement. We need to see these guys going to wheel to wheel, and it's no good if one of them is just going to get a penalty for something as innocuous as that.
And behind the front 2 teams, Red Bull were 5th and 6th, with Max Verstappen finishing ahead of his teammate Daniel Ricciardo. Both drivers had to take grid penalties. So was that as good as it was going to get? And do you think Verstappen could have been in the mix without the penalty? Because he did show fairly good pace.
Oh, unbelievable pace. I think that we will, in the coming years, look back at Max Verstappen's opening laps of the Sochi Grand Prix as some of the best in his career, because it was stunning how quickly he cut through the field. It was like a hot knife through butter. He was flying past them. Okay, we know the Red Bull is faster than the cars in the back of the grid, that's granted, but the pace with which he was overtaking them was staggering. Got up to 6th place incredibly quickly, then it became 5th. Stayed out when everyone else pitted, and he led more laps in Sochi than Hamilton, which, considering he started on the back of the grid, is phenomenal. Had he been at the front, would he have been able to challenge? I think the Ferraris, yes. I think he certainly could have challenged the Ferraris. I'm not sure he would have had the pace of the Mercedes, but we saw in the first section of qualifying that Red Bull did really look fast around Sochi. And I think Red Bull might have a tinge of regret that they chose to take the engine penalties for there, because actually it looked like Verstappen was quite dialed in and he might have been able to do something a bit special, maybe grab a podium. But no, some driving from Max.
And in the Constructors' Championship, the midfield remains at tight with just a few races to go. A couple of battles to look out for. Do you think Haas are capable of beating Renault to fourth? And what about Force India? They've said they want to catch McLaren. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, certainly. Haas taking fourth and beating Renault, definitely a possibility. They've had a real renaissance over the last couple of races. And more worryingly, Renault looked like they were absolutely nowhere in Sochi. They really were lacking pace. And again, the next few tracks are similar characteristics, so that will be a worry for them. It's a really good midfield battle, but one of the most interesting things about it is most of the teams in it have stopped developing their car. They're all concentrating on next season. There's a couple of rule changes coming in to do with the front wing and making it easier for cars to follow each other. So a lot of them have actually stopped development. So the current order is probably going to be where it stays. So I think Haas probably will beat Renault. The Force India look really fast. The problem they've obviously had to come across, though, is that they've had their team's points taken away from them when they were taken over halfway through the season. So they're being treated as a new team in terms of the Constructors' Championship. They've done an amazing comeback so far. They're hunting down McLaren, they're hunting down Haas, they're hunting down Renault. I don't think they'll manage to catch them, but they've shown some spirit so far to get to where they are.
Scott, I really want to get your thoughts on this whole Danny Kvyat situation, because he's, of course, returning to Toro Rosso for next year, despite being dropped by the kind of Red Bull family. I mean, I have to be honest, I never ever thought this would happen. I mean, this is incredible, isn't it?
Oh, utterly. I mean, this man, it's his third stint at Toro Rosso, which, lest we forget, is supposed to be a sort of, junior team to feed drivers up to the Red Bull team if they're seen as good enough. He's been deemed not good enough twice by the Red Bull family, and yet they chose to bring him back in. Utterly bizarre, completely a bolt from the blue. Not necessarily a bad thing. I think Danny Kvyat was seen as an exciting driver, a good driver, famously described by Sebastian Vettel after particularly a tough Grand Prix, I believe it was in China, as a torpedo. That's exciting. He's an exciting driver. I think we need more torpedoes on the grid. Let's have him back. And he is still a very young driver. I think that's what a lot of people forget. Although he's been in the game for a while, he started off very, very young. He's still in his early mid-20s. He's still got something left to give. It's just, will he ever be a world champion? I mean, he's shown that he really wasn't on the same level as some of the other Red Bull contemporaries around him. I really doubt it. But, let's see. At least he'll be a good benchmark for whoever Toro Rosso decides to stick in the other seat next season, which it looks at the moment like it might be a Pascal Wehrlein, which might be a really exciting lineup for next season.
I mean, does all this suggest that Red Bull are a little bit short of options, though, Scott? Because I think they've got a lot of drivers in their system, but none of them have the super license points that would make them eligible for a Formula One seat.
Yes, and this is partly the problem at the moment at Red Bull, just the way their recruitment has worked. They now currently have a sort of a couple of years where there's a gap where they don't have a driver coming up to GP2, GP3, and it's starting to cost them. It's a result of, they haven't seen a driver at that sort of age bracket who they thought was good enough for the Red Bull stable. But then equally, what they've done is they've also taken a driver who would have been at that stage now, and they've promoted him to the senior team, because Max Verstappen would have been absolutely in the middle of that age range at the moment and in the discussion for getting a promotion to Formula One, but they promoted him years early to make sure that they snagged him and he didn't go to another team. So, it's a bit of a concern for them. I think it will raise question marks over whether it's worth them keeping ownership of the Toro Rosso team if there aren't younger drivers for them to stick in it. But there are some exciting drivers in the lower ranks of the driver academy. So you've got to hope that they start to develop and grow, and I'm sure they'll pick up some other people along the way. So it's good for Formula One that Red Bull do this. It's just I think they're going to have a couple of lean years.
Scott, I mean, amid all this the chat from the Russian Grand Prix last weekend, we almost forget that we've got a race to look forward to on Sunday. We've got the Japanese Grand Prix, and what do you make of this situation with the drivers saying that they want to have DRS through 130R?
I think this is great. This should be what Formula One is all about. This is, 130R was one of the most fearsome corners in Formula One. It was on the edge of the grip. The big question was, could you take it flat without crashing? If you did try and take it flat and you were wrong, you were going to lead to a huge accident. It was a real, damn dare moment. And it's been neutralised over the years by better mechanical grip and better aerodynamic grip. just mean that it's not the corner it once was. It's still fearsome, but it's not the same threat. DRS would change that. My goodness me, that would make it more interesting to go through there. Imagine going through that corner, but without your rear wing in position. It sounds like it would be a thrilling prospect. So I'm entirely in favour of it. If the drivers think it's safe enough and they want to take it on, why not? Because it would only lead to exciting racing, which is exactly what we want to see. The safety standards are good enough where I think we can go ahead with it. Yeah, I think it would be a fantastic thing to see. I'd love to see DRS open to 130R.
Yeah, and just finally, Scott, how do you see the race shaping up this weekend? Are Mercedes still the team to beat, or do you think Ferrari could maybe pull something out the bag, because they really are under pressure this weekend?
Yeah, I'd love to think that Ferrari can keep it interesting this weekend. Given the characteristics of the Suzuka circuit and where Mercedes have been in the last two races, I just can't see them challenging. But the weather, the only thing I would say is the weather does look utterly, utterly dreadful in terms of rain. Bad for the teams, great for us, because that will throw the order up a bit. The Ferrari hasn't looked particularly good in the rain, actually, but that may bring teams like Red Bull into it. It might bring a couple of the lower teams further up the grid, so at least that should mix it up a bit. So, yeah, hopefully a bit of weather thrown in there, and then, it's anybody's guess.
Scott, great stuff. Pleasure to chat with you again. Thanks very much for joining us on the show.
No worries. Thanks very much, guys.
Scott Douglas from the Checkered Flag there. And stay with us as we talk all things MotoGP up next on Rock Sport Radio.
You know the feeling, you're at work and all of a sudden you fancy something, but you're not sure what. You go to the vending machine and nothing. It's empty. Sound all too familiar? Go Vending supply fully serviced vending machines to buy or lease, and that means fully serviced. Vending machines, water coolers and coffee machines are all available. Whatever you need, wherever you are in central Scotland. Call Go Vending on 01294 279 536 or visit our website govending.co and speak with the vending experts. Go Vending.
City Blinds and Shutters are Scotland's blind and shutter specialist, and your business can benefit too. From head offices to workshops, restaurants to studios, City Blinds and Shutters can make your commercial business stand out. Brighten up your office or your workspace. We can even print any logo or design to really catch the eye. Professionally designed and installed with free design and estimate. Call us on 0141 551 8785 or visit cityblindman.com. City Blinds and Shutters, not just for your home.
Seventh Heaven is Glasgow's premier lap dancing club for premier entertainment in premier surroundings, and especially for you. Quote, I'm on the Rock Sport Radio guest list for free entry. Seventh Heaven, open 7 days from 9 p.m. until 3 a.m. Find us at 15 Elm Bank Gardens in Glasgow. See more at seventhheavenglasgow.co.uk.
Love music, live sport. Pole Position with Andy Alston and Adam Todd on Rock Sport Radio.
Okay, let's take a look at all things MotoGP now, because we're going to have the first ever Thailand Grand Prix this weekend. Marc Marquez, of course, goes into the race with a 72-point lead at the top of the championship with just 5 races remaining. So, Adam, that must be it then. Marquez surely has this title wrapped up.
Yeah, you would assume so. I mean, MotoGP, we've had so many guests on from MotoGP this season, and they've all said about how competitive it is. MotoGP's really been in the crest of a wave in terms of it's just been fantastic to watch over the past years. There's been so many competitive riders, so many competitive teams. It's been fantastic to watch. Yet, actually, in a few of those seasons, we've saw Marc Marquez dominate. What I think is quite interesting actually about this season is he's not completely dominated Marc Marquez, because we were talking about the Aragon Grand Prix a few weeks ago, and that was his first win in 4 races. It's been the consistency of Marc Marquez this year. He's had a couple of podium places, but he's also had 2 pointless races as well where he's failed to score. So I don't think it's been completely vintage Marc Marquez, but he's been the man who's been consistent. His other championship rivals, they've just had too many retirements to put together a strong championship fight this season. That's been the difference.
And of course, with this being a new event as well, does that maybe give some other guys a chance to claim the top step of the podium this weekend? So, because what can we expect from this circuit, Adam?
Well, it's the Chang International Circuit in Thailand. Now, it will be known in terms of World Superbikes because that was held in 2015. Track's a very new track, only opened in 2014. Fantastic for the track that MotoGP will be held here at least from this year through until 2020, so the Thailand Grand Prix. In terms of what we can expect of the track itself, it's a layout of 12 corners, 7 braking points, 2 very different areas as well. The first half of the track consists of long, straight, stop-and-go style braking, and the second half is a series of connecting corners. You know, you've got strong braking in certain areas as well, and the straight is 1,000 metres long, which actually makes it the 5th longest of the entire calendar as well, behind the Circuit of Americas, Mugello, Argentina, and Montmello as well. So it's going to be very hot as well. Asphalt temperature looking as if it could reach 60 degrees.
Jeez, in October.
And another thing you've also got to remember about Thailand is, you know, the Thai fans, they love MotoGP. Very important market for Dorna Sports, who are in charge of the running of MotoGP. So I think it's going to be fantastic, because at testing there was loads of fans there, and when you look at testing perhaps in Formula 1 or even elsewhere in MotoGP, you don't get too many fans going. It is good to see the cars and the bikes for the first times, but in Thailand they really embraced that, so expect them to embrace it again this weekend.
Yeah, and you mentioned testing there. Dani Pedrosa was fastest earlier this year. You know, of course he's yet to score a podium this season, Adam, so I mean, could this be the venue where his fortunes change?
Seems so far ago since Dani Pedrosa was fastest in testing, and I don't think anything could have prepared for what a woeful season it really has been for Dani. Such a shame. We know he's retiring at the end of the year. Jorge Lorenzo, he's joining Honda as his replacement, but for Pedrosa it's just not worked out for him. And we had Simon Patterson on a few weeks ago from MCN, and he was saying, you know, if there was one man that he wouldn't expect to kind of, because they know they're retiring, to drop off form, it would be Dani Pedrosa. They would expect him to just continue to work at the same level, and I think that's been the strange thing. It has just been a sudden drop in form. Yes, Marquez has always had the better of him, but it's really been dreadful this season for Dani Pedrosa. 5th place, only his best result, and you know, it always helps when you do go to a track where you like, but then again, you know, it was only testing, different fuel loads, they're trying different setups as well, so you've got all that to consider, and tyres. So for Pedrosa, you know, perhaps a psychological advantage knowing that he was fastest in that 3-day test back in the winter months ahead of Thailand. But yeah, I don't think it counts for too much, and I'd be surprised if Pedrosa's on the podium this weekend, but it would be fantastic to see.
Now let's take a look at Ducati, because the battle between their riders has been great to watch, Adam, and of course we head into the final stages of the season now with both Jorge Lorenzo and Andrea Dovizioso both eager to finish ahead of one another. Yeah, it's really been a ebbs and flows, that's the way to describe Ducati. It's just been fantastic, as you mentioned. Andrea Dovizioso starting fast out the blocks, winning in Qatar. You're expecting him to mount a championship fight. It's not happened because he had 3 retirements in the early to mid parts of the season. Jorge Lorenzo, dreadful start to say the least. 6 points from the first 4 races, unacceptable as a factory Ducati rider, and all of a sudden it just clicked with him and he's won 3 races. And for Lorenzo, he's actually had a run of 3 consecutive pole positions in a row, and he hasn't done that for 6 years, and Ducati haven't achieved 3 pole positions in a row with one rider since 2008 with Casey Stoner. So that just gives you an indication of how strong Lorenzo is at the moment. Despite that, he's off the back of 2 retirements, so for Lorenzo, very important this weekend that he bounces back, because he's lost out a big time compared to his teammate, because he was actually ahead of his teammate at one stage, and now I think the gap's about 44 points, which will be a lot to come back. And Dovizioso has 2nd place in Aragon. That's his 4th consecutive podium and his best ever run of results of his entire sporting career. So yeah, it's just been a really fantastic season for Ducati, but as I said, I think they'll look back at the end of this year and think, do you know what, not only could one of our riders win this championship, we could have had a 1-2, because the form of Lorenzo and Dovizioso, when they have been on the pace, they have been extremely competitive. But you look at Dovizioso, how many retirements he had over the course of the year? 3, and that's been the biggest disappointment for Ducati. And Lorenzo, that bad start, 2 retirements, 6 races from the first 4, and then the retirement last time out in Aragon, failing to score in San Marino. This is why Marc Marquez is leading. It's the consistency game. Now, what about Yamaha, Adam? Because, you know, Valentino Rossi has come out with some strong statements ahead of this one. He's already tested the engine for next year. He says he's underwhelmed by that. He said that Yamaha they can't continue to afford to remain at this current level of performance that they have. They're on this longest ever winless streak in the category. Surely they won't go an entire calendar year without a win. Well, you would think it would almost be unheard of that this situation is actually happening. You mentioned Valentino Rossi there.
We spoke earlier on in the year when he announced that he had signed a 2-year contract extension with Yamaha, so he'll now be there until 2020. And he's desperate to win that 10th World Championship in MotoGP. That's the one he's after. He had an opportunity a few years ago when he was teammates at Yamaha with Jorge Lorenzo. It was Lorenzo who came out on top in that particular battle. But Yamaha just don't look like a championship winning team. And I actually think Valentino Rossi has been one of the riders of the year. He's third in the championship with 159 points. He's ahead of the likes of Jorge Lorenzo and Dani Pedrosa, who's on the factory Honda that Marc Marquez seems to be dominating. And the reason I say Rossi's one of the riders of the year, because the bike's just not been competitive. But I think he's maximised the potential of that bike, because even though it's been very tough for him, he's still maintained and still given 100% week in, week out at the track. OK, he's maybe had a go at his team once or twice and tried to give them a bit of motivation, a bit of encouragement. But to be third in the championship, I think is really impressive considering where Yamaha is. So for Rossi, you know, he's such a great rider as well, and time is running out for him if he wants to win a 10th World Championship. You mentioned he's tested the 2019 engine, and you had Maverick Vinales' comments a few weeks ago and saying he had zero expectations for the rest of the year. So it's proper crisis mode at Yamaha, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting point on Rossi, because of course he's recorded 5 podiums throughout the course of 2018 as well, which is an impressive one in its own right. But, you know, just one other driver I want to get your thoughts on, Adam, Scott Redding, because he's going to be leaving MotoGP to join the British Superbike. So what's the logic behind that one?
Yeah, well, for Scott Redding, we always knew that in the end he would be out of MotoGP, which I think is a shame, because you want as many British riders as possible, and there is a concern going around the MotoGP paddock from the British press, certainly. You know, you've got Scott Redding and Bradley Smith, Scott Redding's future's now been decided, he's going back to British Superbikes, but you also have Bradley Smith, his future's uncertain, and you've got Cal Crutchlow as well, who perhaps will be retiring. You know, he's certainly got a few years left at the top of his game, but, you know, where is the future of British MotoGP coming in? And you would like to think that MotoGP is getting bigger and bigger in this country because of what Cal Crutchlow's achieved. He's had a lot of race victories as well. So for Scott Redding, going back to British Superbikes, I think it's good for him, and he'll be hoping to be competitive there, because for Redding it's been a tough year. Just 12 points to his name. Go to British Superbikes and win some races. Yeah,
now Adam, let's take a look now at the last event of the season in the British Touring Car Championship, because that was the Diamond Jubilee, the 60th anniversary of the series. It came to a close last weekend as Colin Turkington sealed his third driver's title. And Adam, I mean, you have to say that Turkington deserved that one, because, you know, he's been strong throughout the course of the season. We've spoken on this show about how consistent he's been, and, you know, we sometimes forget he's only had one race win as well this season.
Yeah, Turkington's been brilliant. He's had a bit of a slow start at Brands Hatch, Indy and at Donington, but 2 second place finishes at Thruxton really kick-started his season. He didn't have an easy time of it last weekend, though. He finished 12th in race 1, but that was 2 places ahead of Ingram crucially, which meant he extended his lead to 36 points. Then in the second race he made contact with Dan Lloyd at Paddock Hill Bend and fell off the track, finishing down in 22nd, but Ingram could only manage 4th, so he had a 23 point gap with 22 left to play for.
Yeah, it was almost quite a strange weekend for Turkington in some respects, because of that consistency that you're seeing him right down there at the bottom of the pack.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he had 10 podium finishes this season from the 30 races, but last weekend was quite bizarre, as you mentioned. You know, he finished 23rd in the last race as well, so really crazy, but he got the job done.
Now, Dan Camish won the first and the second race last weekend, but there was a bit of controversy after the opener, because Camish was handed a 30-second time penalty for an alleged false start. But the Halford User Racing team appealed and managed to get the decision overturned. And Camish told BTCC.net that he was pleased justice was done.
They believe I jumped the start, not in terms of on the lights of when I left the line, just in terms of they felt I was out over my grid box, so I was too far forward. The problem with that was that they had absolutely no evidence to prove so. The TV camera from my onboard showed I do move marginally, but it is incredibly marginal before I touch the brake. Matt's onboard, obviously alongside me, just behind, shows I move marginally, but you can't see it. There's so much glare and other things, you can't actually see the line of where I've actually moved to. And then there's the circuit camera, which suggests You can't see anything either. The judge of fact, who actually stands on the track and says, did he jump or not, said, I don't think so. And it was just the opinion of the clerk in the end. He said, I think you've jumped it, so I'm going to penalise you. So we took it straight to the above that, to the officials, and thankfully it was overturned. In all honesty, I was surprised that we had to go there, because it's unusual to be penalised on someone's opinion. There was absolutely no facts, but I think the right outcome was done, and I wasn't going to lose that one.
So Adam, how would you sum up Camish's season?
Well, he had big boots to fill after Gordon Shedden moved on from the team at the end of last year. Getting a drive with a manufacturer team is great, but that brings some added pressure. A double win last weekend was a great way to finish off his season, though. I'm sure he will do that going forward.
And yeah, it's easy to forget that this is his first full season in the series as well.
Absolutely, that double win means he finished just 5 points behind Matt Neal in the standings, and I think having Neal in there is key. Having an experienced head alongside him at the team is important, and that was his first wins in the British Touring Car Championship as well. He's clinched the Jack Sears Trophy too, and it'll all stand him in good stead for next year.
That being said though, did you maybe expect a little bit more from Camish though this year?
It's hard to say. I think that new Civic Type R has some potential, but it's been a tough year for the team. What you have to remember as well, it's been racing rear-wheel drive single-seaters and Porsche Carrera Cup cars for most of his career, so he's had to adapt to front-wheel racing this season, and when you're in the championship, you need to learn fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Ash Sutton won the final race of the weekend, finishing just 32 hundredths of a second ahead of Josh Cook, and he told BTCC.net that it was a nervy end to his season.
Yeah, the whole race, he defended it perfectly. And I laid every card down that I had, and he laid either the same one down and sometimes a better one. And I just meant that I had nothing left on the table barring that last lap. And it's almost like this is going to be a risky one. It's going to be out of the ordinary. And I know what he was expecting. He's trying to get underneath him, but he's been quicker through the whole weekend to me, even in race 2. So it was like, right, we're going to go play a different plan here and run around the outside of him and literally use the side draft all the way down to the finish line.
Adam, how frustrated do you think Sutton will be with his campaign? Because he was touted to go in and really mount a serious championship defence, and it never really quite happened.
Yeah, he won't be happy. The start he had just incredible, wasn't it? But then a double win at Croft helped him big time. There was a bit of controversy about that one, mind you, because the Subarus went from being uncompetitive to all of a sudden winning races, with some people suggesting that the way the boost was tweaked played a part in that, but the team made more changes to the overall package that helped. And it felt quite similar to Lucas Di Grassi in Formula E, where the reigning champion struggled to defend his title, but Sutton's a great driver, and finishing 4th in the standings overall is a good result and good recovery.
Let's hear now from our new champion, Colin Turkington, because he told BTCC.net that title win was very special.
It's a sensational feeling to be a triple champion, and this is the one I wanted more than any other. It's been such a hard year for us off the track, and we've sacrificed so much. But the BTCC was the one ray of light through it all. It kept us focused, and it was nice to come to race weekends and almost not think about what's happening at home, and get some podiums and bring some happiness to the family. So it's been tougher than ever, and the racing this year has been tougher than ever. 17 different race winners, and to come out on top is a special feeling, and the championship only gets harder. But I'm pleased that it's 4 years from my last win. But it's nice to come back and do it with BMW behind us, to do it for the manufacturer, and spread the glory out. So I'm just overjoyed.
And Adam, we've spoken a lot about Turkington and the success he's had, but a quick word for the guys in second and third, starting with Tom Ingram. He was second in the series, clinched the Dunlop Forever Forward prize as well for the most overtakes. Even though he fell just short, he's been one of the stars of the season.
Yeah, and he wrapped up the independent title for the second year in a row, with Speedworks Motorsport doing the same in the team standings. Ingram is a bit of a driver's driver in so much as he's another one who's so consistent and he can carve his way through the field as well when he has to. And Ingram pushed Turkington and BMW all the way, and I think he could just go one step further next season and win the title outright.
And Tom Chilton, of course, he switched teams ahead of this season, moving to Team Shredded Wheat Racing with Gallagher. That paid off with a third place finish.
Yeah, he finished up with 266 points, and when you compare it to his teammate Jules Cole, who only managed 67, it is a fantastic achievement. He's probably a bit gutted not to have won in the independents category, but to be honest, he'll just be glad to be back at the front after last season.
Adam, just briefly remind us how that move for Chilton came about.
Yeah, he was at Power Max Racing behind the wheel of a Vauxhall Astra, but things just didn't go to plan. He ended up finishing 15th overall. That was his first season back in the sport since 2011 because he'd been focusing on the World Touring Car Championship. So he'd switched to Team Shredded Wheat Racing with Gallagher. Just a one race victory at the final event in Knock Hill, but he finished outside the points just 4 times all year, 3 of them between Brands Hatch Indy and the Donington Opener, so he'll be delighted to be back at the front.
Now, the World Rally Championship returns this week for the Wales Rally GB as we get set for the 11th event of the season. Hyundai driver Thierry Neuville leads the way at the top of the standings, with Toyota's Ott Tanak leapfrogging M Sport's Sébastien Ogier into second place. And the big story going into this one is that Ogier will leave M Sport at the end of the season to return to Citroën. So joining us on pole position to talk more about this is rally expert David Halley. And David, what's your reaction to this announcement?
I'm slightly annoyed, to be honest, but that was just the game was played, and Citroën this is the team that at the end of 2016, when Sébastien Ogier was signing on the Brew after Volkswagen had withdrew, wouldn't even return his calls, have now just crossed his palm with so much silver he couldn't say no.
David, quite outspoken start there. I get the impression that Ogier seems to be pointing the finger at Ford here, though, because in an interview with the French media, he said that Ford weren't keeping pace with our needs and things like that. You know, I mean, what's he driving at there, David?
It is Ford. What you have to remember is that M Sport is a private team with a little bit of Ford branding. They don't come with the amount of wedge that Toyota and Hyundai have to play with. And M Sport use the World Rally Championship as a showroom for their rally car sales. M Sport survive on selling rally cars to people, and the WRC is quite a nice showroom for that. But they don't have the deep pockets that the manufacturers do. Sebastian came to M Sport last year, won the championship, or won all 3 championships, and Ford said that they would continue to support and provide additional support, but that has not been as forthcoming as Sebastian would like. He wants to drive the team forward, and there just wasn't the funding available to do that. And Citroën obviously were desperate to get somebody good in the car and used that and their own wherewithal to entice him to take on another team, which at the start of this year, when the rumours started flying around, he said he didn't want to go to another team. He didn't want to start afresh with a new team, but he just feels that Ford have not taken it seriously.
So, David, who do you think would be a realistic replacement for Ogier at M Sport?
Yes, very good question. Mickelson, possibly. He's not had the best of seasons with Hyundai. He is very quick, but he has obviously been playing second fiddle or third fiddle to the other drivers there. That might be an interesting one to throw into the mix. But as we said before, it's all about experience of the events. So there are very few people out there who have got that experience sitting on the sidelines twiddling their thumbs, unless your name's Chris Meek. But then he comes with a whole heap of history as well.
I mean, and how secure do you think Elfyn Evans is there at M Sport, Ogier's current teammate? Because, do you think they could maybe try and get 2 new drivers for 2019, or do you think Evans is maybe likely to stay? Because this is a very big event for him this weekend.
This is a big event. This is 21 last year, his breakthrough event. He has not performed to that level throughout this year. He's very much played almost third fiddle in the Ford team. Timo Sunninen has come along and shown great skill and a steady development pace. Elfyn hasn't done that. There's a new R5 car coming from M Sport for next year based on the new shape Fiesta. I could possibly see Elfyn doing the development work in that and bringing that car into the World Championship, but that then leaves a couple of seats at M Sport. So it's very much all to play for, and we did say a few weeks ago that until Sebastian decided where he was putting his backside for next year, that the driver market was going to remain in flux. I think things will now begin to settle down a bit.
And David, of course, we've got the Wales Rally GB taking place, and we've had the first event tonight. It's just finished up. Could you just bring us up to speed with what's been happening there?
To be honest, no, I can't, because I haven't been sat in front of a computer tonight. I've been working on engines, believe it or not. But yes, the following a recent dry spell, we're looking at a weekend of wet weather, which is traditional Wales Rally GB weather. So yes, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out over the next 3 days.
Right, okay, a furious search there. Esa-Pekka Lappi is top. Jari-Matti Latvala second. Thierry Neuville third. The top three split by just 0.3 of a second. Then it's Ogier fourth, 7/10 behind. Tanak's fifth. Mikkelsen 1.7 seconds behind in sixth. So, of course, there was a bit of it was an interesting one early on. We had the incident during the warm-up with one of the Toyota drivers, Tanak, just sliding off the road in the shakedown. I kind of feared the worst as well when he came round that corner. But the marshals and some of the spectators as well managed to get him out the ditch. And some of the photos on social media as well. There's guys in the roof of the car trying to get the weight of themselves to pull the car out.
Absolutely. These cars are notoriously fragile around the edges. There's not a lot of places to pull and push on. So a traditional way of doing that is to get the wheels that are in mid-air closer to the ground by adding some body weight, and then hoping that the driver will be able to use the car to drag itself out. There's a great history of things happening on shakedown and cars being quite seriously damaged prior to the event. This one was just a minor fall off the edge, and if you're going to have a fall off, let's do it in the shakedown, let's not do it in the event.
So despite this little off, I mean, Tanak is still the man of the moment in the World Rally Championship, winning all three of the last events. What do you think the chances are of him going 4 for 4 this weekend?
Very high, very high. He's back to the powerful engine. He knows these forests. He knows the event. He's got his confidence is up. He's up there. He's fighting for it, and he's very much going to be in the fight. Thierry Neuville, more of a tarmac specialist, although to be where he is in the World Championship, leading it, he's got to be good on all surfaces. We'll see how he comes through, and Sebastian has really got to make the last 3 events with M Sport Ford count to see if he can get his championship back on the rails and win it again.
And David, what about the Citroen pair, Craig Breen and Mads Osberg? Are maybe both of those drivers under a bit of pressure to deliver now because of the Ogier announcement?
Absolutely, his is the only seat that's announced at Citroen at the moment, fully confirmed. Lappi's probably going to end up there. That leaves Breen and Osberg potentially fighting over one seat if they're in the frame at all.
So, I mean, David, do you think this is maybe an event for Citroen where they could maybe snatch a podium here, because we know how unpredictable the weather can be, the surface as well? Is this a good chance for Breen and Osberg to impress?
Absolutely, but where we have an issue with this, with the ground conditions here, normally the first cars on the road run at a disadvantage when it's dry forestry conditions. They're running at a disadvantage clearing the top surface. A bit of rain can bond that surface together, which will give the front runners something to bite into. It then gets very muddy later on, and the later runners have a bit of a disadvantage. So starting in championship order, it does depend exactly on how much rain we have over the weekend. And then you get into second run through the stages, which cars have been through already. They're going through again. It is very muddy. but a little bit of sun in the air can dry out a bit, and it's up to the drivers to see what's coming and be able to react and drive appropriately compared to whatever the road conditions are.
And David, we've got a few changes for this event as well. The drivers taking part on some closed public roads too, so that just throws an extra challenge into the mix there.
It's an interesting one. It's taking rallying to the public, which is something that the new laws in England and Wales allow organisers to do, to close roads. Closed roads have always been able to be done. What wasn't able to be done without an Act of Parliament was suspending the Road Traffic Act. So any rally driver taking part in a closed road event up until now would only be able to drive at 30 miles an hour, which is not very exciting at all. The new law change that came for this year means that they can run the stage to the finish right down into the centre of Llandudno, down the Great Orme, which is a tarmac stage. They had hoped to use that as the power stage, but the regulations say that the power stage must be representative of the rest of the event, and the rest of the event is in the forests. So the power stage will be the penultimate stage in the forests, and then this run down the Great Orme and through the streets of Llandudno to the actual finish, which will be quite exciting.
And of course we've got the British Rally Championship taking place as well.
Twice, actually. The way the British Championship works out is 2 one-day events. So there are 2 rounds of the British Championship taking place. We lost 2 rounds earlier in the year, one through snow and the Isle of Man through to an organisational hiccup. So Matt Edwards is leading that championship, having won everything that's happened so far. He is in the pound seat, but David Bogie from Scotland is not too far away.
So how do you see Bogie shaping up for this one then, David?
He's got to beat Matt Edwards, so he's got to be absolutely on it. I don't see Matt Edwards taking it gently. The way these cars drive, you cannot drive a rally car in a forest slowly. It'll just fall off the road. You need to be on it and pushing the car quite hard. And the 2 of them going at it, it could be very interesting. Matt Edwards has had some recent seat time. He won the track rod stages recently in Yorkshire, just to get some seat time in the car and get used to being on the loose. So, all to play for.
And just finally, David, prediction time. How's this one shaping up in the World Rally Championship? How are we getting on?
Oh, I'd love to see Sebastian win it. I think Sebastian would like to win it. A Ford 123 would be very nice, but highly unlikely. Tanak's going to be up there, as is Neuville. I would probably say Ogier, Tanak, Lappi, then Neuville.
Right, okay. Okay, right.
But you know how good I am at this.
I know. I'm just debating that one. Right. Aye.
It is so close. It can be as daft as sliding off the side of a stage. Is going to destroy somebody's weekend. Who knows? I certainly don't, and my predictions have been poor all year. So let's continue on that basis.
Right. Okay then, David. Pleasure as always to chat all things rally with you on the show. Thanks very much for your time.
No problem. Cheers now.
Rally expert David Halley there speaking to us on pole position. Now, Adam, just a couple of very brief Scottish motorsport stories I want to get your thoughts on here. Sandy Mitchell, he's been one driver that's been in the headlines, shall we say.
Yeah, 3rd place in the Silver Cup of the Blancpain GT Endurance Series in Barcelona. He's just 18 years old, driving a Lamborghini Huracan GT3, so a big result for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's just change tracks for just a moment and get a half-time report from the Europa League Group G clash between Rangers and Rapid Vienna Ibrox with Bob Smith.
And that's where it sits. Rangers 1, Rapid Vienna 1. In the early stages of the game, Rangers raised their pace much higher than was evident against Livingston, forcing Rapid to commit a few fouls in an attempt to stop their attack. The tackling from both teams was tasty, as players from each side knew the importance of allowing the opposition space and room in the final third. Ryan Kent has proven troublesome for Rapid, running and willing to take on a handful of the opposition defenders. With their new manager, must be pleased with his players' commitment in the tackle. Then nearly a disaster for Rangers. A crash came in from right and It's Flash's header, inches past the post. As a half wore on, no team was taking control of the match, with Rangers finding it difficult to untangle a very resolute Austrian defence. But Ellis had tough luck in a 1-2-1 with the Austrian goalkeeper, meeting the in-swinging corner, but heading just past the post. Then disaster for the Arabic side, a quick breakaway up the Austrian right-hand side, short cut back from Ivan Fine Berichet, who drove the ball home to put the visitors in front. Not to be outdone, this setback drove Rangers on, and then a quick response by Relish was in the hand to slide the ball home. And that's the way it sits at half-time. This is Bob Smith of Rocksport Radio at Ibrox. Rangers 1, Rapid Vienna 1.
Thanks for that, Bob, and you can catch the full-time report with Ian Martin on Rock, Stock and Barrel from 9 o'clock tonight. And now it's time for a bit of this.
Final lap on pole position on Rock Sport Radio.
Yes, it's that part of the show, Adam, as you tell 6 stories from the world of motorsport this week in just 60 seconds. So, let's see how you get on, because your time starts now.
Formula 1 is considering changing the format of qualifying next year. The plans could see a 4th qualifying round added to the current 3, but a final decision is yet to be made. The return of the Dutch Grand Prix could be one step closer after FIA race director Charlie Whiting said the Zandvoort track would need minimal changes to host a F1 Grand Prix. Whiting also visited Vietnam this week to look into the prospect of hosting an F1 race in the Asian country in the future. Marcus Ericsson has said he is in talks about a possible move to IndyCar while maintaining his F1 duties for next season. The Sauber driver will become the team's 3rd driver in 2019. Three-time BTCC champion Colin Turkington is set to make his debut in the Chinese Touring Car Championship this weekend. He's racing in the next 2 events for Volkswagen China team. Jonathan Rea made history. He's secured his 4th consecutive World Superbikes title in France. The Northern Irishman has won 14 of the 22 races this year, with 4 still remaining. And finally, congratulations to Anna Carrasco, who became the first female rider to win a motorbike World Championship. The 21-year-old clinched the World Supersport 300 title by a single point at the final round Magny Cours.
Oh, come on, no chance. Right,
that's
no
perfection.
chance. Oh,
Perfection.
Right, okay, right, we'll leave you to that's all we've got time for, unfortunately.
Love music, live sport. Pole position with Andy Alston and Adam Todd on Rock Sport Radio.